elected mayor.
Yes, I was very fortunate to get through both the primary and the general in a very crowded field of very experienced political leaders. And I was elected and sworn in as mayor in the County of Hawaii on December 1st, 2008.
How did that make you feel?
There was a lot of emotion. One, you're very humbled and thankful because so many volunteers, so many supporters of every community on this big island had to help get you elected. So you're very humbled and thankful with the responsibility. You're excited with the challenges that lay ahead. But I was under no illusions in December of 2008 what some of those challenges were, because we were right on the cusp of the Great Recession, and everybody knew it. And we knew it was going to be tough, and we knew some very difficult decisions needed to be made and some significant challenges lay ahead.
What was the first important decision you made as a mayor?
The first important decision in any organization, but certainly as the mayor, chief executive, what I did before assembling my team was upon election, because I had made no commitments or promises to anybody for any employment. I didn't have a team. What I did was call every CEO, every executive director of a nonprofit, every senior partner of a law firm, every political leader, and ask them how did they build an organization and what did they look for in creating a successful team. Because I knew that any accomplishments and achievements of our administration was going to be dependent on the quality of people and the team put together. And they all said the same things. They all said, you got to hire people smarter than yourself. You got to surround yourself with really good people. Number two, you cannot micromanage your people. You're going to stifle their innovation, their creative ability, and their ability to lead. You're not leading followers, you're leading leaders. So that's a different kind of leadership. You got to trust them. And third, they said, ultimately, you're accountable. The buck stops with you, so you got to hold everybody who worked for you accountable. And that's the type of team I put together. But they also told me your first decision as mayor, who you pick as your managing director, is a critical piece of having a successful team being put together.
Who did you select as your managing director?
I chose William Takaba, or Bill Takaba.
What was the reason for that?
I chose Bill because he was the most experienced person that I knew, the type of family man he was, the type of values he had. He was very humble, that he was good. He was going to be good at bringing people together. He was well respected across the spectrum in this community. I knew that people were going to look at, because I had never been elected. It was my first time in elected office. I was a new leader, that a lot of eyes would be upon how you start to put your team together, and that first selection would make all the difference in creating the credibility needed and necessary to lead a community, especially in a difficult financial time. And because of his extensive finance background, not only having been the finance director for the previous 8 years, but the fact he had served as a previous finance director and another mayor, I knew going forward that you can have the most wonderful vision you want, but you cannot implement or execute public policy unless you have sound, strong, strategic fiscal policy. And that's why I built the company.
In putting together the rest of your team, what was your general hiring philosophy?
You know, throughout trial work, being a lawyer, being a leader, being a public servant, there's a lot of complexities and a lot of decisions you make. Confronting natural disasters, tsunamis, hurricanes, you've got to be able to create very quickly a matrix that takes the complex and makes it simple. Otherwise, you're going to get bogged down in details, and you're going to fail to execute the leadership decisions necessary to help your community. So I like to keep things simple. It didn't matter who you related to or how hard you worked on a campaign. That's not what the team was going to be made up of. That I realized that you had to have the 3 B's. That's my philosophy. You had to have 3 B's before you could lead a department. People don't realize that each single county department in itself is one of the largest companies on the island of Hawaii. The police department, you have over 500 people just in that department. Parks and Recreation, you have 450 people. Fire Department, you have 432 people. You get budgets in excess of $13 or $15 million. If I asked you that, who I was going to pick to lead a company as the CEO with a $15 million annual budget and 400 employees, that person has to be, you have to have an educational background. There's no substitute.
Is that the first E?
That's the first E. You have to have the educational background. Second, you have to have experience. You cannot learn on the job, not in this job, not the team, not the aggressive vision that we had. We wanted to hit the ground running and we had to move fast. And so you have to have the experience. And third, you have to have the expertise. You couldn't, people that I made sure we picked, they knew exactly what they needed to do and exactly how to do it. So then I thought, that's not enough. That's just your resume. So my philosophy was you had to have the 3 C's. One was commitment. You had to be committed to this community. I didn't pick anybody from Oahu and cabinet to fly over and be a director of the department. I wanted people who lived here, who called here home, because then they would be accountable to their decision making at the time in administration to this community for the long term. So one, you had to be committed. 2, you had to care. You got to be compassionate. I didn't want to get phone calls that somebody was rude, disrespectful, somebody ignored a community, that I had to go put out fires because somebody was arrogant, condescending on your team. I wanted people who were compassionate and caring. We live on a very diverse island. You could pick up the phone and go to a community meeting and meet anybody from anywhere. You couldn't be narrow. You couldn't be biased or prejudiced. So the second C was to be compassionate, to be caring. And the third C was to be courageous. In this job, it's hard to get a cabinet. You're asking somebody to make less pay, work longer hours, and take bullets in the meeting. And that's not the most attractive package to get people to come on board. You need people to be courageous because you got to make difficult decisions. This is not 90-10 decision making, 99-1 decision making. This is 51-49. You can make one decision, somebody will be mad somewhere. But you've got to take the information, get the best available information you can. And with that information, whatever is at your disposal, you got to make the best decision possible. And you got to make that decision. And so that's the type of people that I picked for the cabinet in our administration.